And I'm going to ask you the first question, if you're ready to go.
Yes.
All right. So the first question is, tell us about yourself and why you are running for the Board of Education.
Well, my name is Paula Reed, and I grew up in Jefferson County. I graduated from Pomona High School. While I was there, I fell in love with a Green Mountain guy who I married after I graduated, and we raised two Green Mountain grads. I taught at Columbine High School for 30 years, and interspersed in there, I had a brief stint teaching elementary school, so I've done a lot of different kinds of teaching in the district. While I was at Columbine, I taught speech and debate, which tended to attract your really bright, really traditionally achieving students, and sort of your garden variety 9th and 10th graders, whoever I happened to get in my classroom. And then I also taught in a program called ACE, Alternative Cooperative Education, and that was an at-risk intervention program for students who were identified as at risk for dropping out for reasons other than disability. So I have taught every kind of kid there is, and I have loved every kind of kid there is. I retired in 2018, and honestly, I knew when I retired I was not finished with education. I was ready to be out of the classroom, but my heart is still in the schools. And so when the opportunity to run for the school board came up, that's where I felt called to be, and so here I am.
Please share your understanding of the issues surrounding the Jeffco Public Schools budget.
I believe that we are woefully underfunded, and I think that a big piece of that is the budgeting stabilization factor, or the BS factor. And this is something that I really believe that every school board in the entire state has a moral obligation to lean hard on our state legislature and say, you know what? You owe us a whole lot of money, and you cannot keep paying us in IOUs. You are suffocating our schools, and they need to feel it. We need our legislature to go to their constituency, and I know that people don't want to hear it, but say, I'm sorry, but we cannot keep giving you back all your tax dollars. This $60 here, $40 there a year for you is killing our schools. And so we're looking at a situation now where I know that we're letting people know, hey, sorry, we don't have enough bus drivers. You're going to have to figure out how to get your kid to school. I know that parents are reporting that it's taking kids so long to get through the cafeteria lines that they don't have time to eat their lunch. And this is because our cafeteria workers are so short-staffed, and they are ready to break. They're getting tired of it. At some point, we have to pay more than McDonald's does so that we can attract and retain employees. I'm hearing from some principals that when it comes to the teacher pool, they're getting some great candidates and they're choosing from not necessarily the best. And that's because, A, teaching doesn't pay well, and so we've got young people saying, if I'm going to pay student loans, I don't think I'm going into education at all. So we're losing an entire group of people that way. And then we're losing people to Denver and Boulder and Littleton and places that pay more. We just have to be competitive, and to get the money for that, that's got to start coming from the state. This is outrageous.
All right, hi, Mindy here, principal at Drake Middle School. All right, number 3, how will you balance the competing interests of employee compensation versus student and school needs?
So as was pointed out, I did get these questions ahead of time. And so I looked at that and I thought, wow, what a curious way to phrase that, the competing interests of employee compensation. I can't think of anything more important to students than our employees. So when we say to a child, sorry, there's no bus because we don't have bus drivers because we're not paying enough, I don't understand how that is in competition with student needs. Students need high quality educators across the board, counselors and social workers and all of those licensed folks. They need people who are in there making their food and getting it served to them in a timely fashion. Our principals, in order to run their schools, need top-notch secretaries. So that's not competing. Those things go hand in hand. Now, there are certainly other student needs, and we do have to figure out how to make all of that work. But our personnel is top priority. You can have the best curriculum in the world, and if you don't have a good teacher to deliver it, I don't understand what the good of it is.
Good morning, Paula. I'm Amanda Perazio. I am the Community Superintendent and the Leadership Awards Chairperson for JCAA. Next question for you. Describe the impact of the pandemic on Jeffco Public Schools and what you will do to ensure student learning, safety, and health.
The impacts have been huge. I don't have to tell you that. And one of the things about having only been retired for 3 years is that I am still in close touch with a lot of educators. So I've got, I think, a pretty good idea of what's going on. Certainly there's the lost instructional time. And that is going to take some work to catch up on. We do have ESSER dollars, and I think that we need to be thinking very wisely about how we spend those. Definitely need to be offering enrichment and catch-up time and things that will help students in that regard. In person is best, but even if we can offer online reinforcement after school for students who can't necessarily access the school building after school. Those are things that we can definitely be looking at. My understanding too is that we're having a little bit of a bumpy time getting kids back used to being in school and doing school. And so one of the things that we need to do is offer a little grace and space. And we need to understand that we're not going to recover 100% by Christmas time. We need to be spending some time reestablishing norms and helping kids get back into the swing of things. And we need to give teachers some breath in which to do that. So I think that that's really important. In the meantime, we need to keep our kids in school consistently and safely. So I feel very strongly that we need to work with Jefferson County Public Health in that regard. I do think sometimes they may be a little quick on the trigger when it comes to quarantining, wanting to shut down schools, and we need to push back against that if we can, because we got to keep those kiddos in school. But in terms of mask mandates, if that keeps our kids in school, then mask mandates it is. I know that it's a bit of a headache, and I know there are some parents who don't like it, but what we're seeing is that there's less of a spread in school that have in schools that have those mandates.
Good morning, Paula. I'm Heather Keaton. I'm the principal of Warren Tech, and I've got number 5. What are the major issues confronting our district regarding student achievement, and what will you do to improve them?
I think part of the problem is how we measure achievement. I think that to insist that one single standardized test score as our main means of measuring achievement is short-sighted. And I think Warren Tech is a brilliant way to look at this, right? So I know that there are students who may not do brilliantly on the CMAS, but they're getting certifications in things that will allow them to graduate and step straight into the workforce. Don't tell me that kid's not achieving. He's absolutely achieving. So we need to look at the body of evidence, and we need to look at what happens to our kids when they leave our schools. Because if they are successful in college, or they are successfully completing training in a skilled trade, or they are successfully getting certifications that allow them to have the kinds of lives that they want, then we are succeeding. And in CTE, because I taught ACE and it was part of CTE, so I know this, I know that we keep track of what happens to our kids after they graduate. I'm wondering why we're not looking at more of that, honestly. I think that we are a little short-sighted in terms of looking at how motivated kids are on the CMAS. I think it's interesting that we tend to see more growth in MAPS and on the SAT and the PSAT than we see on those state tests. I think what you're seeing there is that kids feel like they've got a little skin in that game, and that affects their achievement. I think their computer literacy skills affect it. We're testing reading on a computer, and we know that adult reading comprehension goes down when you put it on a screen. So I think there are so many things that go into that we need to be looking at a much broader base of evidence for student achievement.
Good morning. I'm Stacy Bedell. I'm the principal at Fiber Elementary, and I have question 6. As a member of the school board, why should you be chosen to lead Jeffco Public Schools, and what will you do to work collaboratively with all constituents for the purpose of improving the learning experience for all students?
I think that the strength that I have over anyone else that you see. And I'm running on a slate, so I think my slate mates are awesome. But the thing that I have is that I know how decisions that get made in the Ed Center affect the classroom. I had 30 years of experience in seeing how decisions that get made at the Ed Center affect the classroom. And so that will be my guiding principle the entire time that I am on the school board if I am elected. How will this impact schools and students and student learning? And there are a lot of constituents involved, and I do think that we need to hear from all of them. We have employee associations, we have you all, we have JESPA, we have JCAA, and they can help us understand the employee perspective on things. We need to have strong connections with the business community because after all, we are preparing people to go into the world and work for our businesses. And we want to make sure that our kiddos have everything that they need, the soft skills and the hard skills. So I think that listening to them is a really important piece. And parent groups, the PTA and our school accountability committees, those are all super important. Our diversity groups are really important right now. So the Community Diversity Advisory Council, I've already been talking to them. We want to attract a diverse workforce. We want kids to see themselves reflected in the educators standing in front of them. And we want our students, no matter what their racial or ethnic identity is, to feel like education is something they could go into. So I think all of these groups are really important, and we need to listen to all of them and seek their feedback.